Dixon, logging on. Every console gamer in the 80s and early 90s were more used to the platformers, action, shooters, sports, puzzles, role-playing games, and all sorts of other fun type of games on a popular video game console that uses a cartridge. No matter if it's an Atari 2600, a Nintendo Entertainment System, a Sega Master System, a Sega Genesis, or the Super Nintendo. And oh yes, not to forget to mention the video game portables that also uses cartridges, such as the Nintendo Game Boy and the Sega Game Gear. But in 1992, during the 16-bit wars between the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, there was a new video game media format brought to Sega as an add-on for the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, which uses compact discs instead of ROM cartridges. Actually, the Sega Genesis was the second game console to have a CD add-on. The first console to have a CD add-on was the TurboGrafx 16. Hopefully I'll get into that someday, if I ever get around to getting it, that is. The Sega CD was mainly trying to add a new concept in gaming, the FMV, which is known as full motion video, which combines both movies and video games together, or try to, which I actually thought was a really neat idea to begin with, but roughly technology was not there yet due to the poor video quality, poor video compression, limited color palette, and other limited specifications, plus a retail price of $299 US when launched on October 15, 1992. I know the video quality on the Sega CD add-on was butchered compared to a VHS tape with hardware limitations, and the Sega CD was given negative feedback because of it, and it was considered as one of the biggest commercial failures, which I fully disagree with the bad reception towards the Sega CD. You have to at least give them credit because the CD-ROM technology was still a new thing for the time. And the concept of making a game and a movie at the same time is also a new thing worth trying, regardless of full motion video having the good acting or the bad acting. And sometimes bad acting kicks much more ass than the good acting does. That's right, I'm more of a B-movie guy. There were two full motion video titles that attract the attention of the Sega CD. Those two were Sewer Shark and Night Trap. Both games were developed by Digital Pictures. Now, I would like to explain about the back history of the two games. In 1985, Tom Zito, the man partially behind the works of the two games, was in a video game console development, the project's codenamed Nemo. It was also known as the Control Vision, which uses a modified ColecoVision and a VHS player. The type of media format they were going to use was VHS tapes instead of game cartridges, which I would find that kind of odd looking back on the history of VHS format making an attempt to become a video game console. But then again, there were home computers such as the Commodore 64 that uses different media formats, including cassette tapes, as a format for video games. Actually, there were two VHS video game consoles released. One of them was the Action Max, and the other one was the Viewmaster Interactive Vision. I guess it was an innovative idea for the time of combining a video game console and a VHS player in one whole unit, but it didn't seem like the combination of both succeeded, and the VHS format for gaming didn't last due to the more advanced compact disc media technology cashing in. The Hasbro Toy Company invested $7 million in exchange for the video game rights to the project, and got 3 short trial games done in the middle of 1986. and their ongoing project from there is Night Trap. Night Trap was filmed over a 3-week period of time in 1987, and the same year they also filmed Sewer Shark. And after the filming was done for both games, Hasbro ditched the project, which I believe that led to the cancellation of the Nemo project. And the rights to the games was bought back by Tom Zito. And the recorded footage of both Night Trap and Sewer Shark was archived until the rights of the games were purchased in 1991 by the founders of Digital Pictures. And during the following year, shortly before the Sega CD add-on was released, Digital Pictures had a partnership with Sega to help promote the Sega CD add-on, and both Sewer Shark and Night Trap were launched on the same day as the Sega CD add-on on October 15, 1992. And that's basically all the backstory I can find about the two games. Now that we got the backstory out of the way, let's now talk about the two games in detail. Starting with Sewer Shark. I never did have much experience with this one as I did with Night Trap when I got my Sega CD in 1995, because it was years later when I got a copy of Sewer Shark.
Relax. Pretend it's a game. Maybe it'll even be fun. Shoot the tubes, dog meat!
Sewer Shark is a full motion video and a first-person rail shooter game. It's set in a post-apocalyptic future in a fictional city, Solar City, which is ruled by a corrupt commissioner by the name of Stenchier. Boy, what a stench. And politics can be a stench. And you're just a rookie pilot given the name Dogmeat, which is a common name that's been used in other post-apocalyptic adventures, especially the most popular post-apocalyptic video game series, Fallout. You were given the name Dogmeat by your commanding officer and co-pilot named Ghost. Boo! I'm so scared. He's a ghost. And your task as sewer jockeys is to clean up a network of sewers by exterminating mutated creatures to get to the fat cat at the top. Fat cat? Why did I say fat cat for? It should be fat rat. Fat mole rat. And there's also a female pilot you work with later in the game, who also shows up at the beginning before your first assignment, named Falco. Falco is also another familiar name, one of the characters from Star Fox. And last but not least, a robot scout who scouts ahead for destinations throughout the sewers, given the name Catfish. I guess a sewer can also be a fishbowl, a dirty fishbowl of rats. And that's all the main characters of the game. Now the gameplay. It's playable, and it's a unique idea for a video game. But the only issue I have here is that it doesn't seem like you're on a job. It's more likely you're on a suicide mission, because it looks like you're going 30 miles per hour or faster. The speed and the pixelated colors for the game kind of blends in, making it hard for you to see what's ahead of you. But I think it's just me because I haven't played this game as much as I played Night Trap during my youth. But I totally will put more effort into Sewer Shark when I get around to it, because it's still an underrated gem. It was also one of the top Sega CD games, period. And I know there's ways of getting further into the game, if you have your mind set on it, of course. In 1993, when the Model 2 of the Sega CD was released, an updated version of Sewer Shark was also released, which is the one I actually have, and I'm sure there's no difference between the two. Well, anyway, it became a packed-in game with the Model 2 Sega CD. I think by the time Digital Pictures went third-party for the PC and Mac computers and the 3DO console. From the looks of it, Sewer Shark never made it to either the PC or the Mac computers, but it did made it to the 3DO game console, which the chances are the 3DO version is the more superior version between the two, because the 3DO console does have a better picture quality than the Sega CD does. There's not much more to say about Sewer Shark as of now, so let's now move on to Night Trap. Now, Night Trap is the one I've been familiar with since the day I bought my Sega CD add-on in 1995. It was the first full-motion video game I've ever played. When I first played this game, I was really blown away by it. I was really impressed, because it feels like watching an 80s slasher flick like Friday the 13th or Slumber Party Massacre, but at the same time playing a game on a CD. Night Trap is an FMV survival horror game. And the story of the game is about a few teenage girls that disappear in a secluded location, and now we have a SCAT team on a stakeout in the area where the group of girls have been disappearing from. And another group of girls are on their way over, including an undercover agent named Kelly, who's portrayed by Dana Plato.
You with me, Control? We're going in.
Dana Plato is also known for her role on the early 80s sitcom Different Strokes. Sadly, she passed away in 1999 at age 34. God rest her soul.
This guy is really wigged out. Hey, Control, check out the house.
Well, anyway, Kelly is an undercover agent and one of your instructors. The main instructor is Commander Sims, who details you about what happened to the previous girls and explaining that your job is to protect the girls from whatever happened to the last ones. The house is full of cameras and secret traps, including some of the traps that the residents inside the household doesn't even know about. And one of the SCAT agents got into the house and found a security system which he hacked, giving the SCAT team control of the traps, which is where you, or should I say, I, the player, come in. Sometimes you're referred to as Control, because you're controlling the traps. Your main objective is to stay behind all 8 cameras and trapping as many augurs as you can. Yeah, the creatures in black camouflage uniforms with tanks on their backs that look like scuba diving tanks are called augurs. Some say they are vampires, and some say they're zombies. Well, they are bloodsuckers and followers to the main perpetrators, so they resemble either description of vampires or zombies. And your most important part of the assignment is to protect the girls from those creatures. And there's 3 things you must avoid doing while on the mission. 1. Avoid letting too many augurs slip through your fingers, like 43 of them or more. 2. Avoid trapping someone you should be protecting, mainly the girls. And 3. Avoid letting these bloodsuckers kill any of the girls. And if you don't avoid any of these 3, then your superior will pull the plug on you and you're finished.
Dismissed. Breaking contact.
The traps are always protected with a color access code. It's always set to blue, and anyone inside the house can change that code at any time. You definitely have to pay attention to what they're saying.
How about purple? Sure.
And the color code change is always random every time you play the game. The only color code that doesn't change is the blue code at the beginning. So from there on, you must pay attention, or you can be screwed. Oh, by the way, SCAT, S-C-A-T, stands for Sega Control Attack Team. Since at the time it was a Sega CD exclusive, that's why it's called Sega Control Attack Team. But when it went third party, it was changed to Special Control Attack Team, which makes more sense. Now, Night Trap is most likely famous for the controversy that stirred up when released, especially at the time when there wasn't a rating board for video games. Video games was normally targeted towards kids, but unlike Nintendo, which Nintendo is targeted for kids mainly, Sega was taking another direction when it comes to violent video games, and Night Trap is one of those games that did. The controversy starts with the cover art, with a hot busty babe getting chased by a killer, and in-game details like having women being killed or captured violently, and the most controversial scene in the game is the game over scene, with a girl in a nightgown getting attacked by these bloodsuckers and draining her blood, if you let them. And the Congress find that scene, and the game for that matter, very offensive. And Senators Joseph Lieberman and Herbert H. Kohl and members of the U.S. Congress hearing concerning violent video games cited this game as shameful, ultra-violent, sick, and disgusting. These congressional idiots think the game is mainly about killing women. But the player is actually saving women, not killing them. Now, the nightgown scene, I would totally understand if their parents would see their kids playing the game and seeing them play the game during that scene. But they judged the reaction of the game too harshly. Lieberman suggested that the game should either be pulled off the shelves or have the shocking scenes taken out, which I would rather have neither, to be honest with you. I would say just temporarily take the game off the shelf and add the rating on it. One thing I find after hearing absurd is why the hell was the president of Nintendo of America, Howard Lincoln, doing there? Given his own opinion and not sticking to the facts, like saying that Night Trap has no place on any Nintendo console. Well, let me tell you something, President of Nintendo of America. If that's the way you see it, then you got nothing to worry about. Let alone it has no concern with you or Nintendo. I honestly think Howard Lincoln was there just to make Sega look bad and Nintendo look good. Well, that's where Nintendo's mistakes come in. Like with this wimpy-ass censorship for their versions of awesome games that involve violence from superior counterparts like Wolfenstein 3D and Mortal Kombat. And we all know how those turn out. By the end of 1993, the game Night Trap was pulled from every kid retailers like Toys R Us and KB Toy stores. I understand the complaints at the time when there's no ratings for the game, especially if someone buys a game like Night Trap and gets lured into a shocking surprise when they play it. In 1993, Sega started having a rating board system for their games. But in 1994, its controversial games like Night Trap, Mortal Kombat, Lethal Enforcers, Wolfenstein 3D, and Doom that became a main factor to keep every single game in check from now on. In the fall of 1994, that's when the ESRB Entertainment System Rating Board was born for all third parties in the video game market. And by that time, an updated cover for the Sega CD of Night Trap was released with an M rating, and the cover art with the busty babe was changed to the main character being on the cover of the box art. Either in a different box art with an M rating on the front of the cover, it's still the same as the original. And during that time, the Sega 32X add-on was released, and it was meant to be a 32-bit upgrade for both the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. And they also made a 32X version of Night Trap, with the same box art as the latest Sega CD box art. The only big difference of the 32X version over the regular Sega CD version is that the 32X version has a bigger picture with more advanced details. But the drawback to the 32X version is the sound quality is inferior to the regular Sega CD port. And having both the Sega CD and the 32X add-ons with a few big-ass adapters might be too much for an upgrade. Other than the 32X CD having the updated graphics over the Sega CD version, I would stick to the original Sega CD version. And when it comes to the best console port, I highly recommend the 3DO version of Night Trap, which was also released around that time, and also released on the PC and Mac. I haven't played either of the computer versions, but I probably would think that they might be the superior versions out of all. Night Trap did have mixed receptions, and most of the FMV games can be bad, but I think they can be bad that they're freaking awesome. And Night Trap is considered as a cult classic. It was one of the revolutionary ideas when it comes to the concept of combining movies and video games together in one. And some people do think that Night Trap is a great game, and some people do think that Night Trap is one of the worst games of all time. In a way, the game can be bad, but to me it's not a bad game to hate. It's a bad game to love. I think the game is bad that it's rad. I love the fact that Night Trap pays homage to 80s slasher films, involving beautiful women getting chased by monsters. Now that's the beauty point of it. Even though the game is not as violent as an actual slasher film, or as violent as the critics or Congress claims to be, in my book with the history and nostalgia memories towards Night Trap, I think Night Trap is awesome. 1994 was the year that Digital Pictures went big for third-party support on the Sega CD, 32X CD, and 3DO consoles, and the PC and Mac home computers. But in 1995, gamers decided that full motion video games and the consoles I just mentioned were not the way of the future. So gamers decided to stick around with the current 16-bit wars until the next generation of gaming comes, which was around the fall of 1995 when Sega launched their new console in North America, the Sega Saturn. And by that time, Sony was making its first console debut, the PlayStation. And the PlayStation was the first CD-ROM console that really went to town for all gamers. And they've been successful since. In 1996, when the Sega Saturn, the Sony PlayStation, and the debut of the next Nintendo console, which was the Nintendo 64, making a huge impact on the world of gaming, the obscure consoles such as the Sega CD, the 32X, the 3DO, the CDI, and the Atari Jaguar was discontinuing. And the company that developed these full-motion video games such as Sewer Shark and Night Trap, Digital Pictures, went under. Night Trap is a cult classic game the way I will always remember. Screw the critics that bash the game too harshly. And we have to give Night Trap credit, because it's one of the landmarks of controversial gaming. And of course, me personally, I'm into all sorts of B-movies, especially when it comes to 80s slashers and hot babes and all that. I do hope they make a comeback with this game. Well, there is good news and bad news. The good news is this year in 2014, Night Trap creator James Rowley announced a comeback through the Kickstarter campaign by doing an HD remaster of Night Trap. And if they succeeded, they also plan on releasing other digital picture titles in HD, which I think would kick ass. And furthermore, if they succeed, they have plans on doing a sequel to Night Trap. That would be freaking awesome. The Kickstarter campaign was launched by director of the original Night Trap and other digital picture games, Tom Zito, in August and ended in September. But this is where the bad news now comes in. They didn't succeed. What the hell? I was really pissed off about it too. I would love to see Good Memories come back in HD. I sure the hell hope they don't give up on this project. And that goes for other projects that I had high hopes for that also didn't succeed. Such as another comeback of another game that boosted the full motion video genre in a different way. The Seventh Guest. Well, actually they were working on the third installment of the Seventh Guest series instead of a remake. Yeah, the first game's called The Seventh Guest and the sequel's called The 11th Hour. And the third one's just called The Seventh Guest 3, The Collector. A positive message to the creators of the two games and the ones who are trying to bring back the two games, which they are the original creators of the two games, of course, and other creators that have a similar goal of those two games. I just want to say, please do not give up. I personally think you deserve more credit for your work than the overrated A-listers in Hollywood today. Let's all hope together that these campaigns for Night Trap Revamp and the third Seventh Guest game succeed. And that goes for other games similar to that. Well, that wraps everything up about the story behind the full motion video games of Sewer Shark and Night Trap. I hope you all enjoyed. If you have any full motion video game ideas for me to review, then please do comment below. Like always, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful night.